Hi, well welcome to LoHi Sounds, where in this episode we'll take a look at the Fuzz Face, probably most associated with Jimi Hendrix. So this is what we need. First up, we only have 3 resistors and a few caps of different values. 2 germanium transistors are needed, but it's a good idea to have a few more to try out. For this version, we need a chip to change the polarity of the current as well as some sockets. We have an LED and a holder, and of course 2 jacks and a DC jack. We also need a stomp switch and 3 pots: bias, volume and fuzz. We also need some knobs, wire, solder, strip board, soldering iron and sold sucker, in case we make any mistakes. A few good items to have includes our trusty box cutter, electrical tape, pincers, and crocodile clips. We also recommend to get a multimeter, as it will help with troubleshooting later. It's also nice to have a ruler, so you can draw straight lines. And that's everything. We'll start by using the ruler to cut the strip board into 17 by 9 rows. And now it's time to cut the traces. So here we want to be careful cutting the traces and make sure that they are cut all the way to the edge. As always, we start with the lowest components, the leads. When soldering, the general idea is to apply heat on the component with the soldering iron. Then put solder on, letting it flow smoothly on both the strip board and the component. Lastly, remove the soldering iron. Be careful not to apply too much heat, as that will damage the heat-sensitive components. You don't want to use too much solder either. We're moving up the layers and it's time for the resistors. We're using sockets for the chip, as it is heat sensitive. And now it's time for the capacitors. Ensure that the caps are oriented correctly before soldering them, as they are polarized. The sound and the characteristics of the pedal are heavily dependent on the transistors, and because of that it's a good idea to try out different transistors until you find ones that suits you and your style. For this reason, we are also socketing the transistors, making them easy to swap. After this, it's time for soldering the wires. We want to test the circuit before putting it all in a box, and this is easiest done with crocodile clips. It's quite a messy process, but it's well worth it. You simply attach the input and output wires directly to the input and output of the 2 jacks, bypassing the stomp switch, which is not needed at the moment. Apart from that, everything should be wired according to the schematic. Never mind the LED light, and don't forget the grounder wires. Double check everything and then plug it in. Also make sure that the knobs are not turned all the way down. The circuit seems to work. However, the sound is a bit tame and the volume seems too low. Let's try the other transistors. That's it, a much better tone and a lot more sustain. On to drilling the enclosure. As usual, we're drilling small pilot holes before going for the step drill. If you're drilling your own enclosure, we highly recommend to get a step drill. It makes everything so much easier. And a small file can be handy to make the components fit properly. And now it's time to paint the enclosure, and we're starting off with a base layer. To make the paint stick, you could go with a primer first, but we think it's a bit overkill. And as for the artwork of the pedal, don't really try this yourself at home. Grab your nearest design student, it is way safer. Now that the artwork is done, we want to protect it with some clear coat. First we wire the leads to the stomp switch, then we attach it to the enclosure, of course being careful not to chip the artwork. Then we add the LED and the holder. Electrical tape is put on the back of the pots to prevent any accidental short circuits. Now it's time for the off-grid wiring before we put the actual circuit in. Make sure to set the trim pot according to your own personal taste. This will probably have the most significant impact on the overall sound of the pedal. Thanks for watching, and make sure to leave a comment below if you think we succeeded in recreating a fuzz face or not. Please subscribe if you like what you saw, and you can always help us creating more and better material through our Patreon, which is linked below.